We are the wild, wild west of healthcare. Dentistry is like healthcare when it serves them, and we are not healthcare when it doesn't serve us. And so I feel if you're looking in business, and we're going to talk nitty gritty business, I think your best investment by far right now is DSOs. Hands down, I think that is where the biggest multiples, the fastest lie. But it's, do you jive with the corporate model, if you will?
So there's an ethical tug and pull then from your perspective. So it's like the most money, but there's that ethical pull. Welcome to another episode of Dental Riffs. My name is Gary Bird. I'm the CEO of SMC National. We provide predictable new patient flow for offices just like yours.
My name is Tanner Applegate, the CEO and founder of Unified Dental. We are a SaaS platform that helps bring all of your different softwares into one single platform for your team.
Awesome. Well, today we have usually we don't have guests. So we've only had, I think we've done about 20 episodes and you are like the third guest of 20 episodes. So I'm really excited to introduce to you Kiera Dent from the Dental A team. And Kiera, why don't you just give us a quick introduction of who you are, what you do for the dental industry?
Yeah, well, hey guys, super excited to be here. 3 is my favorite number, so I'm glad I could be your third guest on the episode. So thank you for that. But yeah, my name's Kiera Dent. People ask me all the time if Dent's a stage name. It's not. It just took me 3 fiancés to get it. So that's a true story. We'll talk about it another time. But yeah, I started out actually in dentistry in high school. And I was a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager. I've owned dental practices. And when my husband went to pharmacy school in Arizona, I actually got an awesome opportunity to work in the dental college there. So I worked there for 3 years with first and second year students. I helped teach radiology because we all know assistants are really good at taking x-rays. Dentists, maybe not as great. So I taught them how to take x-rays. And then I actually opened a practice with a student straight from school. And we took our first practice from $500,000 to $2.4 million and opened our second location 9 months later. So lots of growth, a lot of things. I felt like I got a massive residency in what to do and what not to do. And then we had 7 practices. I sold out of those. And then since then, I decided, oh my gosh, I knew all these dental students and I was able to help one. What about helping the rest of them? So that's when Dental A team got started. So we now consult hundreds of practices across the nation. I've consulted in other countries. And we have a podcast, the Dental A Team Podcast, short tips, tactical, practical, just trying to help positively impact the world of dentistry in practical, tactical ways. So that's who I am. That's what I do. And I'm excited to be here, guys. Thank you.
Awesome. No, I love that download. That was incredible.
Yeah, it's quite the rundown.
Thank you.
You probably have a long list of things, like you said, what to do and then what not to do too, right? Like learning firsthand like that is probably the best way to learn. I've at least for me in business, I've learned the most from growing really fast and making lots of mistakes really, really quickly. And so I actually, one of the things I know that you've talked about and that I think is really interesting right now in the dental space, and I don't think it gets enough attention, is right now there's about, a lot of these bigger dental schools, there's about 50% of the dentists that are graduating are female. So for a long time, it was like, there's no female dentist. Well, that's changing. But all the groups, or a lot of the groups are ran by the CEOs are male. So you still, before dental was like almost 100% male dentist and then female staff. So that's starting to change. So what are your thoughts on what's going on in the industry right now? And what is that going to impact in the future? How do you kind of see that playing out?
So I actually think I've got an interesting perspective on that. Working at the dental college, so I worked with all these students. I saw it shift. I saw a ton of female students in there. But it is interesting. I think kudos. I feel the shift in society, there's so many different shifts for women. Being a female entrepreneur myself, owning dental practices myself, I think one of the biggest things is women historically were having babies and that's why they would leave. So they'd come in, they would work as a dentist for a couple of years, go have children, might come back, but more that associate path was more what fit the niche. But as you see, the trends across are women aren't having babies as early as they used to be. There is a decline in birth. And then also there is a lot of IVF, there are embryos, there's surrogacy. So women are able to stay in the workforce a lot longer than what they were historically. So I feel that that's where you're starting to see more shifts, more women business owners. And I think that there's just a culture shift as well of what men and women were traditionally, if you will, almost like expected to do. And so I think that so many more women are seeing other women do it, feeling like they can do it, and they are doing it and doing it really, really well. Ironically, most of our clients actually are female. I have quite a few males, but it is shifting more to women. I do notice there's a different trend. Typically speaking, men tend to be more risk takers than women. Not all, of course. That's a massive stereotype. But I think what you'll start to see is I do think women, they still like that work-life balance with their kids. So I'm starting to see more and more women partner with associates or partner with other people while still running these practices. I don't see as many women DSOs. I think the male drive tends to just be a stronger drive as of today. But I think more and more and more women, like the practice I was a part of, it was a female dentist and we had 7 practices. Like that's a full-blown DSO that we were running. And it was a female-driven practice. And so I think there will start to be a trickle trend of more and more women owning more practices, getting more offices. And I think that you'll start to see that where I think it will be, instead of it being predominantly men, I think you'll start to see a 50-50 split. I don't think all men want to be group practice owners. I don't think all women want to be. And I think you'll start to see more of a shift in a balance because I feel more men want to spend more time at home. I feel like COVID was really the pinnacle piece that shifted everything. People realize I don't have to work as much. I don't want to work as much. I don't have to be in the workforce like I did. I want to be with my kids more. And so I think my projection, and who knows, this is the Dental Riff podcast, so we'll riff on whatever.
Let's riff on it.
I personally think, and I'd love your guys' opinion, as a female myself, I think that you're going to see a 50-50 split start to emerge. I don't think you'll see an overpowering of women, but I think you will see more men pull back, more women join, just due to society and wanting to be more nomads, wanting to travel more, wanting to be more with kids. That would be what I think is going to happen and shift for the female and male population out there.
I love that. I love, Kiera, when you mentioned that it's because being able to see examples go before you of like what is possible, what can be accomplished, I think is such a very big deal. I'm married to somebody who is a minority, and she's really taught me the importance of representation, right? Yeah. And being able to say, hey, what this person looks like me, has the same problems as me, et cetera. And therefore they've achieved these incredible things. I want to be able to achieve those. And but I love the fact that you're saying, hey, there's starting to have more and more of them happen right now, which I think will only continue to accelerate that trend towards, hey, this is a reality. You can accomplish this and do the other amazing, wonderful things that you want to accomplish in your life as well. So I think that's incredible. I'm curious, where do you feel like that timeline is? Do you think it's 10 years, 20 years, 2 years? What are your thoughts?
This is going to be very political, and we'll see if I'm a fan favorite or not. I think being a female business owner myself, women still lag in a lot of ways. And it's interesting because when I go to events, I have been called like specifically to my face of like, oh, Kiera, we're not going to have you there because this isn't for wives of spouses. This is only for men. And I have literally said like, I'm pretty confident you're not saying that because I'm a female. But I feel as a female business owner, I definitely get treated very much. Some people have been like, oh, she's just a really like ditzy girl. She doesn't really know what she's talking about. I get referred to as a girl all the time. Like, oh, she's just a sweet girl. And it has been a struggle. I mean, I've had my business for 6 years, and especially in dentistry, it's a male dominant industry. I think they look at me as their team members. And I have had several male colleagues tell me, oh, Kiera, I'm just used to you being like my assistant or being my office manager, rather than viewing me as a colleague. And so I think that other women are probably in that similar boat of feeling that way. It could just be me. I grew up with a bunch of brothers, so I feel like I'm like, it's fine. I love to be that ditzy girl that you think does nothing and then show you how to flip your practice. Like that's really fun for me and I enjoy it. But at the same time, I do think that women do have more of an uphill battle. I think historically, they haven't been seen as equals. They haven't been seen as having brilliant ideas. But I do feel that that is a culture shift that will change. And I do think it's already changing. I think that there's so many women who are empowered to have these great professions, to have these great lives. So to answer on the timeline, I think you'll see more and more women. I think you'll see a radical growth of women buying practices over the next 5 years. I think you will see a massive uptick of that with as many are graduating, with as many startups as there are. And also our society now is very educated. There is so much information out there that before they even graduate dental school, they know how to run businesses. They know how to look at P&Ls. Like they've been getting information from podcasts for 4 years in dental school. So I think that they're more ready and equipped to buy practices than ever before. But I think as far as seeing CEOs of women, I think that shift will be longer. I think the DSO space and that will probably be maybe in the next 5 to 10 years as more and more women are owning more practices. That's where I think you're going to see a bigger shift. Again, I could be totally off base because I know there's a lot of rises and a lot of movements of women and empowering women and the future is women. I truly do believe that women in dentistry are going to be making a massive wave over the next decade. I think we'll be quite surprised at how dentistry looks in the next decade for sure.
Awesome. That's a great perspective. One of the things that you said there was like the bumpy road that you've had to experience as an entrepreneur because you are a female. So how have you overcome that? How have you said you had brothers, which so I know if you have a lot of brothers, maybe that's helped equip you. But how did you equip yourself or how did you push through that? And how can other people do the same?
I think for me, I just love dentistry and I love what I do so much that I'm like, it's fine if people don't want to invite me to the table. One of my favorite quotes is, be so good that they can't ignore you. And so that kind of became my mantra of like, fine, if you guys don't want me there, I'm going to be so good that you can't ignore me. And not in an egotistical way, but in a way of I'm just going to add so much value to this world that people will see it and that I'll be able to just serve and help millions that are my people in my tribe. And so with that, I feel like for women, like I'm not a big like pro women going out with women group. That's just not my style. For other people it is. But for me, it was like, go find some CEOs that are just top notch, awesome, pick their brains and become really good friends, male and female. And more, I started looking at it of, I am just going to show up and be my best. And I'm going to do something that I believe in. And I'm going to find people along the way. So I have some of my best friends are male CEOs and they're like, Kiera, freaking do this. And like, this is how you're going to do it.
Who's helped you the most and how did they help you?
Oh gosh. Well, I've had just a lot of really awesome male mentors. I went to Tony Robbins and I was in business mastery and they said like, choose a friend and a partner. And I picked out the most like egotistical man I could ever choose, who's like straight up entrepreneurial, egotistical, like so tall. I'm like, you don't even get it. Like you walk in and people are intimidated by you because you're 6'7". Like you're going to be the one I'll become best friends with. And he is truly one of the nicest, most incredible mentors. His name's Pierce and he owns many businesses, multi-bajillionaire, very, very, very financially and personally successful. But I chose him on purpose because I figured he could teach me think in different ways than what I naturally will think and vice versa. And so he's been a huge mentor. Zeke with Swell. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know Swell. And if they don't, they should for Google reviews. Zeke, I feel is just really brilliant on putting your head down and going against the grain and having that, but then also really strong female mentors as well. I think Ashley Hovez, she's a really strong female dentist who's just making an impact with hundreds of dentists out there. So there's just been a lot of people. And I think for me, it was build a base of people and mentors you want to become like and not look at gender specific, but of attributes and qualities of who you want to become. Model your business after that. And don't be afraid to ask questions because I personally think it was more of a stigma that I was putting out there. I was raised religious. Women weren't really strong. I have no family members around me that are female examples. And I think that that's where a lot of female struggle is. There's nobody that they can mirror. I have no close friends, no family members who are working moms, who run successful businesses, are multi-million-dollar businesses. I had nobody in my inner circle to follow and model after. And so it's finding people in your sphere of influence that can be those role models for you, even if you don't have them within your family, and then giving yourself permission that it's okay not to be status quo of your family. I think was probably my biggest hurdle to overcome for sure.
Awesome. I love that, Kiera. This is one of those topics that I'm very passionate about. I feel like I could go on all day. I love what you're saying. It completely resonates with me. I do want to pivot and shift a little bit though. Now, one of our favorite topics that we always kind of jump into in Dental Rift, I want to make sure we touch on it because you have a unique kind of perspective on this. It's just kind of business in general. So I'd love to start talking business with you. Your background is you've owned and operated a DSO, right? 7 locations. Mm-hmm. You decided to sell out of that and are now doing the consulting route, right? Which it seems to me that you're doing it in a very kind of scalable manner. I'm curious to know, I'm just a little bit of my background. I've built and sold now out of 2 different DSOs. And instead of me going the consulting route like you're doing, I decided and pivoted towards the technology route. So I'm building a SaaS product and doing so to solve kind of operational issues that I experienced while running those businesses. But I'm curious, for your perspective, you've been there, you've built a DSO, you understand the financial opportunities and upsides of the consolidation of multiple offices. You know how to run a very successful DSO. Why the pivot and the shift towards consulting financially?
Yeah. Again, I think that this is going to be so great to tie into what we were talking about before. I am truly led by heart and soul, guys. And even though I'm driven by so much financial, it's more a heart and soul. And I think if I could go back 6 years, SaaS would be freaking way smarter, Tanner. Like, I'm very jealous and envious. I didn't know if I would be smart enough, truthfully, to figure out SaaS. I was like, I don't even understand this world. I see the problems. We're working in SaaS now. I've hired some people to help in that world because I see like that's where the future will be. But for me, I've always been driven by people. And so I truly was driven by the hundreds of dental students that I knew that I wasn't a partner of in these DSOs. And I thought, these people are going to come out into a world of sharks. How are they going to know and run their businesses? And I helped them through all their years of school. I felt I had this like almost motherly nurturing of these dental students needing to have someone that they could turn to, that they knew they could trust out there in the dental world. And so that was my reason for going consulting. It's freaking hard to scale, Tanner. People, like I sell people, like it's me as the product. Like it's not a product. It's not tangible. That's a much harder thing to sell. I do terrible at trade shows. Don't even expect me to be there unless we can speak, because like you don't just walk by a booth and be like, I want a consultant. Like, hey, I'm selling you guys a dream of who you could become. Like that's not going to be what we do. Whereas marketing and SaaS, it's like, hey, let me solve your problems with this cool technology. Done. They'll purchase it. So right now, I actually think I'm in a transitional state as a person and as a business of, do we mass scale? Because my model has always been, I will never be a cookie cutter consulting company. That's not what I believe in. It's not my model. I don't believe all dental offices fit like a package. I feel that they come in all unique shapes and sizes. And while yes, there can be systems that are across the board and can be successful, it's their style, their way to do it for their practice. So I am at a transitional space of, do we mass produce and do we go that route while still having our boutique customization, or do we stay more customized? And realizing that AI and technology, like that's where the world's going. And so I think me as a business owner, that's why I got into it, was people. And I love people. And I don't think that will change. I think that we'll always need a human touch, but it's how can I impact and serve more people? And so that's why it was one-on-one, and then it went to one-on group, and then it went to podcasting. And next up will be SaaS. But gosh, if I could redo it, I still think I would do this. But you're right. The DSO, the SaaS product, I think if I wouldn't have had so much love for all those students, I don't think I would be as motivated to do it. But now I just love people, meeting their offices, meeting them. And that was my decision for doing it.
That's a great
Not
breakdown.
Financial.
Yeah,
Not
that's a
financial.
great breakdown. So, and you obviously have a lot of insight on this. So you basically kind of broke down the dental industry. You have these vendors, we'll call them, or consultants or service people. So people like you as a coach, or people like me, like marketing. Then you have SaaS products. And for those out there that are listening, it's software as a service. Those are the apps that you download on your computer and your phone that you use over and over again, and you pay a monthly fee for. And then there's the DSOs themselves, or the groups themselves. And all of those, it's like, those are all great opportunities. To Tanner's point, the biggest opportunity in the dental space right now is dental still. And then, but SaaS is probably second. And then the services and all those things are much more complicated. But I would love to get your breakdown of like how you view each one and the pros and cons of each one. How do you, those 3 verticals, and is there any other verticals that I'm missing?
I think those are the main verticals. I think the only other one would be if you invest, but that's, I think, in the DSO space as well. Because you can be a silent partner. Like I've been in many practices. I've sold out of them. I've bought them. I've regional managed them. But I think, so DSO is an interesting internal conflict for me. And I think the reason why I look at the DSOs, which I'm sure it is for a lot of people, I feel dentistry is on a really fast track to becoming like standardized healthcare. Now, I know I'm not a popular opinion on this, and I know people disagree with me, but I'm like, if you look back at healthcare, they did the exact same thing. And now look at our healthcare society. So do I think that dentistry still has a pretty positive outlook and a positive run, and there will always be general practitioners? For sure. However, I do believe that we are, and honestly, if I was in the DSO space, which I've been, I would freaking roll up and sell as well. It is multiples. It's a great investment option. It's a great retirement option. But I think ethically as well, I look at consumer, patients, and future of dentistry as well. And are we setting a path right now that is going to radically shift how we've done dentistry? Dentistry has stayed out of healthcare. Like, we are the wild, wild west of healthcare. Dentistry is like healthcare when it serves them, and we are not healthcare when it doesn't serve us. And so I feel if you're looking in business, and we're going to talk nitty gritty business, I think your best investment by far right now is DSOs. Hands down, I think that is where the biggest multiples, the fastest lie. But it's, do you jive with the corporate model, if you will?
So there's an ethical tug and pull then from your perspective. So it's like the most money, but there's that ethical pull. And could you go in a little bit deeper into that? Like, explain it for someone like me who's never worked in the DSO. I've never been a dentist. I'm still scared of the dentist, right? Like, so like break it down for somebody like me.
Sure. And I'm actually curious, knowing Tanner came from DSO, what his opinion on it is. Like, this is I love these kind of debates and just riffs. And again, I might be the popular one or I might not be. And at the end of the day, it's just to educate and to challenge people to question their own beliefs. So for me, ethical wise, when you sell to a DSO, that DSO is a business and they are going to act like a business. And while yes, you're still going to be able to do things and treat patients the way you want to most of the time, at the end of the day, it's a business and it's sold to very successful businesses. And so if you're not hitting your production quota, they do come in and they do shift. And I would do the same thing. You've got to protect that business and you've got to protect that investment. And so that is the ethical piece to me of, do they force dentists to use products that they don't necessarily want to because they're cheaper? Again, not bad, but is it in the best interest of patients and dentists? And then also, because they were able to sell, it is now looked at more as a business rather than the mom and pop dentistry that is about serving the patient's needs. Now, I don't think because you're in a DSO, you don't think about patients' needs. But I mean, my husband, he is a clinical pharmacist at a very large hospital. I will tell you that hospital is down his neck on visits and he has to hit certain quotas and he has to hit certain amounts. And it is very much metrics driven, not necessarily patient driven. And so that's the ethical piece I see is when you sell to a DSO, are we still able to maintain the integrity of dentistry, of doing great service for those patients? Or are we more looking at metrics and numbers solely? And again, as a consultant, guess what? This is my same freaking beef I get as well. People are always like, Kiera, you come in and want to grow us to pay your paycheck. And is that ethical? So I get it internally, but I think that that's the ethical dilemma I see. And I'm not sure if Tanner agrees or disagrees or what his thought is, but those are mine on the ethical.
Here are my thoughts on this. I agree. DSO is a business, but honestly, I feel like a dental office is a business too. You might have a more intimate touch because there's less people there in which you can keep it more kind of personal and homing feeling. But reality is like if profit's not being made, then you can't continue to exist as a business, right? And I think that the reality is that the business itself, when I think about building a DSO, the thing that I loved about building the DSO is that you control the core emotion and feeling of that business, right? So if you look at Disney, recently, the Disney CEO, Bob Chapek, was ousted after a 2-year run and replaced by Bob Iger. And Bob Iger, I don't know if you guys follow this or not, but his thing, he came back in and he said, we are a creative company and we lost the core of our creativity, right? Even these multi-billion, trillion-dollar companies like Disney still always have to go back and recognize we are a business, but that is not what our core is. Our core is this, right? Bob Iger came in and said, our core is creativity. If we don't have creativity, we're not going to continue to have a business. So we focus too heavily on the business. It doesn't matter what happens with the rest of it, right? And that exact same ideology can exist within a DSO. If you focus too heavily on the profit or the money itself, the core of that business, which is patient care and taking care of those patients first, gets lost. And therefore kind of the whole waywardness of the DSO can be gone. That's why I love the idea of if I am in charge of the DSO, I am in charge of where is that core focus, right? I am in charge of that culture. I'm in charge of the feelings in those offices. And if I don't have that control, then ultimately, yes, there is the potential that I'm selling to another organization that says, you know what, our control and our importance is the profit. And so you have these quotas and you have these things we're focusing on, et cetera. Right. I honestly do believe that the biggest opportunities in DSOs are the DSOs that truly do master the scalability of people and culture, which is not something that is easy to do, and which is why we don't see it a lot in the DSO space.
See, so then I look at this. So this is a conversation we've had a lot on this podcast, and it drives me nuts because I can't figure it out. On the flip side, dentists can't even define what ethical treatment is. So I've asked a bunch of dentists, like, what is ethical treatment? How do you measure that? And it's like, basically whatever we feel like.
It's true. And if they feel like that person can afford it or if they can't afford it, and there is a whole side to that. Agreed.
So how do if I start a DSO, I'm not a dentist, I have to rely on the dentist. So if there's going to be bad dentistry done or hitting quotas, it's going to be because the dentist allows it, right? Because they can't even define what, from my understanding, the individual dentist has to define what ethical dentistry is. Mm-hmm. So how do you when you put those two things together, I don't have no idea how to even come up with an answer. I just get more and more confused.
Well, I love what Tanner said. And I feel like that's the core essence of if people are truly checking themselves and serving that patient and doing what's in the best interest of the patient, which I don't believe, Gary, is to tell patients to watch and wait. I'm like, if there's going to be decay, diagnose it. And if you're not going to do anything with it, don't diagnose it. I just did a podcast with Pearl and AI, and I saw you guys just did an AI podcast as well. If I were to wave my magic wand and predict in the future, I don't think it's there yet, but I'm thinking that AI is going to be what creates your ethical standard. And it's going to become a measurable piece that then insurances and dentists and dental schools, because you're right, you put 10 dentists in a room and none of them will diagnose the same thing. Like not one of them will diagnose the same thing. And so I think when you come down to ethical dentistry is, are you doing this for your own pocketbook, or are you doing it because the patient truly needs this and it's actually there as a need? But you're right, it comes down to the dentist. And so I actually think AI or something of the sorts is going to become that standard that we can all agree to. Because I mean, dental claims, I'm sure Tanner knows this. You send out a dental claim and their dental board denies a buildup. And you're like, how did you deny this buildup? Like there is no tooth structure remaining, but yet you're telling me I don't need to place this for structure of the tooth. So I think that there is a lot, which is why I say dentistry is kind of the wild, wild west. It runs by its own rules. But the DSO world being bought up by Wall Street, people who have no interest in dentistry, but are more interested in investments, that's where I think you can get into doing dentistry that's not necessary. So when it's barely breaking through or there's barely something on an x-ray, we treatment plan a crown rather than a filling. That's when I feel like your ethics get very skewed and we're doing it more for the dollar amount. But again, I feel that there are things coming that are going to standardize and stabilize it for better or for worse. Because if you look at modern medicine, they can't charge what they want to charge. There is a set fee across the board, where dentistry, it is a different fee for every dentist that you go visit based on what they want, based on their area. So you're right. It's a very alphabet soup, and it probably does make you crazy out there. But I think it's ensuring that DSOs still allow that, like you said, the core essence of why those patients came there, of why those teams. I was bought by a DSO as a dental assistant and I freaking hated it. Like they treated us like trash and we were no longer people and we had to be there at certain times. And the dentist that I loved and worked for, and it wasn't just structure, because I think our team's upset because it's not the way it was. But when they truly don't treat you as people and they cut people just because you can't fit payroll, that's not the like warm fuzzy of dentistry that we've come to know and love.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know exactly where the balance of that. Another common topic that we riffed on all the time is change management and the skill set of change management, right? Like that was a failed skill set of change management when they acquired you in order to be able to influence and to kind of execute in the way that they wanted to. I don't want to go too much down that rabbit hole. I would love to know though a little bit, Kiera, on you said you started in the services now through consulting, and you're in this process of pivoting towards technology. And I'm a nerd. I love that kind of stuff. I would love to hear a little bit more of what you're doing in that area.
Oh gosh. Well, and I feel like I didn't even answer Gary's of like DSO investment versus services or any of that.
No, we're going right down that road. You're good.
Go
You're good.
DS. Okay. But I feel, so to answer your question on this, for us in tech, I would be a downright idiot as an entrepreneur and a business owner to not think that what I do for practices will one day be replaced by AI. Like how you answer, how you schedule, how we do a new patient experience, how we do setups of rooms. Like that's what I go in and coach on. I teach teams how to make operations manuals. I teach them how to schedule effectively. Like I would be such an idiot not to think that that's one day going to be replaced. So I have been working, and it's like just in the very, very, very beginning stages because I don't 100% know. It's like me trying to create something. It's like, hey, Kiera, describe what outer space is. And I'm like, I don't even know. I've never been there. Like we at least have pictures now, but describing something that I don't even know what it is. So coming up with technology that would be able to do a lot of the things that we do as consulting, because I realize we will become an obsolete company in the next couple of years if I'm not proactive on that. So those are the pieces. It's all what we already do. There's quite a few different things, and it's not going to be training because I think it will actually be replaced by robots and technology for sure.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we agreed with that because I was like, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm going to go and create this cool training platform. And I'm like, you can train on a broken process right now as an industry, but the industry will fix this problem and there won't be the need for training.
100%.
So I'm glad that you see that.
Well, I thought about like, how have restaurants innovated? They don't have people. And if you look at what COVID's done, it's gotten rid of the workforce. Like we don't have people out there like we used to have. So companies and businesses are going to, by default of business, forced to change and innovate. And so I'm like, you go to McDonald's and they now have like self-serve kiosk. You have a QR code where you just pay rather than having somebody come to you at your table. So many things have been shifted and removed away from people that I'm like, we would be absolutely crazy to not believe that dentistry will do the same thing.
Yep. So completely agree.
So how does that line up with what you're doing, Tanner? What are your thoughts on that? I know
that's exactly the belief that I have and the reason why I'm building Unify. Unify, the basis behind it, Kiera, is I believe that a lot of the technology problems that we face today in a dental office are not the individual tech themselves, but instead the process of utilizing that technology and the fragmentation of multiple technologies together. And so Unify, our core mission, purpose, and value is like, it doesn't matter where you need to do what you need to do. Unify wants to bring it all together so that it connects and feels like a singular platform. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's done through, automation and backend connections and such. And so really it isn't, I agree with you completely. It's not that all of a sudden we're going to solve a problem by teaching people to do it differently. It's like, we're going to solve a problem by eliminating the need for the problem to begin with.
Amen. And I'm so glad you're hitting on that because I tell people all the time in software of congratulations, you solved one problem, but this office has to bring on like 10 different, I feel like we're like this weird color wheel of all these different pieces trying to fix one problem. And so I'm so glad when you said like one platform to solve all of the problems, I was like, thank goodness, like that is what's needed because I do feel offices are just piecemealed and it's clunky and it's choppy. And then they're switching between softwares because it solves one problem, but not 10 of the problems. And so it's just very, very clunky. And I've said, if someone was smart, they'd come in and just be a one-stop shop that would actually solve all the problems.
Oh man, that's a whole nother
episode. So I'm excited to hear that's what you're doing.
Don't get me started on that.
Tanner and I have spent hours and hours on that topic. I would love to keep going down this road, but I want to change directions on you. So sure. Last question, and I want you to kind of knock it out of the park. What is an opinion that you have that you wish other people in the dental industry understood better?
I think it does tie back into what we've talked about so much today. And I think an opinion I have is that like teams and culture, and I sound like a broken record on this. I'm the dental A team, so it shouldn't come as any surprise. But if you focus on the people that make you great and you love them and you build them to be their best selves, your practice will flourish and have ease and flow that you can't even understand. And so to tie into like what Tanner was saying and what we've talked about so much, I just wish more people saw that like the people who make you great, if you invest in them and you teach them, and it's not just like pom-poms and pep rallies. It's not like giving them gifts all the time, but teaching them how to not be a dysfunctional team, teaching them how to have uncomfortable conversations, teaching them that we innovate or die. And that is our culture. and really building these cultures of strong practices that don't have attitudes, that don't have egos, that don't have front and back office divides, but truly work as a team. I'm like, you go into any large corporation and they do not run like dental practices do. They're very systematized. They're very organized. They have set processes for things and it flows and people love to work there. And dentistry, we think like, hey, let's just let people be happy and live their best lives here. And then it's psychotic chaos within a practice that I wish more people realized that it is the team and the culture that ultimately will drive success or failure.
Yeah.
And it's always directed by the leader of the practice.
Culture eats systems for breakfast. You can have the most amazing systems in the world, but if you have a horrible culture, it's just going to eat it alive. And vice versa is true. You can have very loose systems and have an amazing culture, and the people will pick up the gaps and it'll feel seamless. The other thing that I've realized in business that's really helped me is there's 3 stages to creating a business, especially if you're creating it from the ground up like you guys have. It's number 1 is you become a master at what your skill set is. And that for most people, that's being a dentist. Then you become an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is different than becoming a master dentist because you learn how to be profitable. There's that arbitrage that you want to create between the service that you offer and being able to afford everything, right? And the cost. But then there's a 3rd stage that most people neglect, and it's being a leader. And that's a completely different skill. Being a leader has nothing to do with being a good dentist or being a good entrepreneur. They're not related. It's a new skill set that you have to go out and learn. And I find that most people neglect it and don't invest into themselves to be that leader. And then that's why when you hear things, people like you that are like, create a great culture. It's like, okay, how do I do that by being a better dentist? Well, you don't. How do you do that by being an entrepreneur? You don't. It's like the next level of being a business person. And the more I've focused on that 3rd bucket, the more successful our team has been. And it's easier said than done.
Well, I love that you brought up that it's a skill to be learned. And I think so many people feel like I wasn't born being a great leader, so I can't be. But realizing that this is actually something that you, just like you went and learned how to be a dentist, just like you said, you've got to learn to be that leader and to train your team to be that same way. But it's a trainable, not a born into this world skill set that everybody can have, but it does require discipline, dedication, and patience, and a lot of freaking time. But a lot of people just don't want to do it and expect it to come easily. And if not, it's like, well, this is just who I am. But I radically disagree with that it's not, and you can actually change it and you can learn. But it's not the sexy piece that's going to turn your dial immediately overnight for you either.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. There's no ROI on it immediately. It's actually quite painful as you realize, oh, I'm the problem. I'm the bottleneck in the business. I'm the one that I hear people say it all the time. Oh, all my team, none of my team knows how to perform. I know right away. I'm like, oh, this person doesn't know how to lead them. They've created a little bit of a mess there for themselves. So I'm 100% with you on that.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that we missed, Tanner?
No, this was amazing. Loved it, Kiera. Appreciate you coming on so much.
Yeah. How can people find you? If someone wants to learn more about like how you could help them in their practice, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. Check out our podcast, the Dental A Team podcast. I'm sure people listening are podcast junkies. So we love you guys to come on, listen here, get your riff on. But if you want to email directly, it's hello@thedentalateam.com. And any questions you guys have, we're happy to help out. But truly an honor. It's real fun to riff with you guys. Thanks for going into some dicey topics, some hot topics, and just sharing your opinions. I love so much that your mission is to bring people together of opposing opinions, because I feel like dentistry is so isolated that if we can all talk and share ideas, the best ideas will transform from that.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and just shooting straight with us, telling us what you've been through, what your perspective is, and what you see the world to be in the future. And if even if we're halfway right, it sounds like it's going to be pretty good and lots of opportunities for everybody. And if you've listened this far to this episode, you are a complete dental nerd, that you made it all the way to the end. Make sure you like, subscribe, shoot us a DM. Tell me my favorite color is blue, and I'll send you some free SMC swag. All right, you guys have a good day.